There is perhaps no silence more unsettling than the silence that lingers in a house where one member feels like a ghost among the living. You know the scene. A family dinner where words are exchanged, laughter is imitated, but something beneath the surface feels terribly wrong. The smile never quite reaches the eyes. The laughter feels rehearsed, and when the conversation ends, you are left with a strange emptiness, as if your very spirit has been brushed by a cold wind. In those moments, many quietly whisper to themselves, "This person feels soulless." We rarely speak of it openly because to label a family member as soulless feels cruel, even taboo. Yet those who have lived in such households know the weight of this experience. It's not about perfection or even about good and bad behavior. It's about presence. A soulful person radiates warmth, empathy, and the capacity for growth. A soulless person, by contrast, seems caught in a loop of emptiness. Their eyes reflect nothing back. Their gestures mimic humanity without ever embodying it. To live with such a presence is to feel constantly drained, as though a void has set up residence inside your own home. Carl Jung warned us of this kind of hollowness in his writings on the persona, the mask every individual wears to face society. For most, the mask eventually cracks, revealing a deeper, authentic self that learns, loves, and grows. But in some, the mask becomes all there is. These are the individuals who appear normal on the outside but carry no inner depth. Jung called them two-dimensional personalities, people who never encounter their own shadow, never wrestle with their unconscious, and therefore never truly awaken to the soul. To live with such a person in your family is to live with an eternal performance, where the actor never leaves the stage. Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, took this idea even further. Through his trance readings, he warned of individuals who enter life but never truly awaken to spirit, bodies animated by breath, yet without the eternal spark of consciousness. He described them as soulless incarnations, people who live mechanically, repeating patterns lifetime after lifetime without growth. Now imagine the impact of such a presence not in the outside world where you can choose to walk away, but in your own living room, where their void quietly erodes your energy day after day. Even Albert Einstein, though speaking from the world of physics, offered insight into this mystery. He reminded us that the experience of separateness, the illusion that we are isolated beings, is a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. A soulful family member recognizes connection, feels empathy, and acts with the awareness that their life ripples into others. A soulless family member, however, lives entirely in that prison of separateness. They cannot feel the bond. They consume, demand, and withdraw, never seeing how their emptiness casts a shadow across the family unit. This is not simply a philosophical puzzle. It is a lived reality for countless people. They sit, they sit at holiday gatherings with a brother whose eyes seem dead, or a mother who manipulates without ever loving, or a spouse who imitates intimacy but never touches the soul. The tragedy of soulless family members is that we cannot easily escape them. They are not strangers at work, nor passing acquaintances. We are bound to them by blood, by marriage, or by the invisible ties of domestic life. The question then is not merely how to recognize them, but how to survive, and perhaps even grow, when the void lives under your roof. In this exploration, we will confront a subject many are afraid to name. What happens when the soulless are not out there, but sitting across the dinner table? Drawing on the insights of Jung, Cayce, and even Einstein, we will peel back the layers of this disturbing phenomenon. And as we do, we will search not only for understanding, but for a path of discernment, protection, and ultimately liberation for your soul and for the sacred energy of your home. When we use the word soulless, it's easy to imagine it as a cruel insult, a way to condemn someone as cold, heartless, or even evil. But in the context of family life, the term points to something much deeper. To call a family member soulless is not about hurling judgment. It is about naming an energetic reality. It is the recognition that in their presence, you feel drained rather than nourished, empty rather than alive, disconnected rather than bonded. The essence of soullessness is not cruelty or malice, it is absence. An absence of warmth, of empathy, of the living spark that animates true human connection. Psychology gives us important tools to understand dysfunction, and many patterns of emptiness in families can be explained by disorders such as narcissism, sociopathy, or depression. A narcissistic parent may withhold love to maintain control. A sociopathic sibling may manipulate without remorse. A depressed spouse may appear detached because their own inner light feels dimmed. Yet even these categories do not fully capture the uncanny quality of soullessness. What unsettles us most is not just behavior, but the energetic texture of the person, the sense that there is no one home behind the eyes. Unlike those who suffer but still grow, who fall but rise again, the soulless family member exists in a flat, unchanging state, untouched by the cycles of growth that define the human soul. This idea is not new. Across cultures and centuries, mystics and sages describe people who appear fully human, yet lack the depth of soul. The Gnostics of early Christianity divided humanity into three types: the pneumatics, who carried the spark of divine spirit, the psychics, who lived half in light and half in matter, and the hylics, who were bound entirely to material existence. The hylics, they said, lived without awareness of the divine, driven only by appetite, greed, and instinct. And for anyone who has lived with a soulless family member, that description feels hauntingly familiar. People who talk, eat, and function, but never awaken to any higher calling. Buddhist cosmology offers another lens: the hungry ghosts, or pretas. They are depicted with bloated bellies and tiny throats, forever craving but never fulfilled. They wander, consuming without nourishment, their existence defined by insatiable emptiness. In family life, a soulless member often embodies this same energy. They may demand attention, resources, or validation, but no amount of giving seems to satisfy them. Living with them feels like pouring water into a bottomless jar. Everything disappears, and you are left exhausted. The Buddhist warning is clear: to mistake craving for life is to remain trapped in a cycle without true liberation. Edgar Cayce, speaking from his trance states, gave yet another perspective. He described certain incarnations as soulless, lives in which a body is animated, yet no eternal consciousness enters. These individuals, he said, repeat existence without progress, like actors endlessly playing the same role, never realizing there is a greater story. In families, this shows up as members who recycle the same destructive behaviors year after year without change or reflection. They may hurt others, apologize, then repeat the same actions, as if caught in a loop. For Cayce, the tragedy was not that these beings were evil, but that they were asleep, never awakening to their true divine inheritance. Carl Jung, from a psychological yet spiritually attuned view, spoke of this through his concept of the persona, the social mask we all wear to function in society. Healthy development requires that the mask eventually crack, so we can face the unconscious, integrate the shadow, and encounter the depths of the self. But Jung warned that some people remain trapped in the mask, their entire identity nothing more than a performance. These individuals never meet their own soul because they never risk peeling away the facade. In families, such members feel like strangers, even after decades together, forever rehearsing roles but never revealing who they truly are beneath. Taken together, these perspectives converge on a striking truth. Soullessness is not simply the absence of kindness or morality, it is the absence of growth. A soulful person evolves through pain, mistakes, and joy. Their inner life expands, and those around them feel that expansion ripple outward. A soulless family member, by contrast, remains eerily static. They do not grow. They do not deepen. Their presence feels like a void inside the house. So when we speak of soulless family members, we are not speaking of ordinary flaws or difficult personalities. We are naming an ancient recognition that some people, even those closest to us, may live without ever awakening to the spark of soul. And when such a void resides under our roof, it does not simply coexist with us, it shapes the atmosphere of the entire household. For many, the recognition of a soulless family member begins not with philosophy, but with a feeling. It may happen in a quiet moment, catching the vacant stare of a sibling across the room or sensing the flatness in a parent's words as though they are reading lines from a script rather than speaking from the heart. These moments are not dramatic in the way films portray evil. Instead, they are unsettling in their subtlety. The eyes register no light. The gestures carry no warmth. And you walk away strangely hollow, as if your own vitality has been siphoned away. One woman once described her father this way. He never raised his voice, but being around him was like sitting next to a black hole. He ate dinner with us every night, asked about our grades, even smiled, but it was a mechanical smile. I never felt seen, never felt known. I would look into his eyes and feel nothing reflected back, only a void. It was like he was there physically, but spiritually absent. Her story echoes countless others, the uncanny sense of being with someone who looks human, behaves human, yet leaves you with the impression that something essential is missing. Daily family life with such individuals often falls into a draining rhythm. Conversations circle the same shallow topics without depth. Attempts to connect emotionally through love, empathy, or vulnerability are met with blankness or even discomfort. Soulless family members recycle the same stories, jokes, or complaints as though their inner world is frozen in place. They do not change, even as the years pass and others grow. Sometimes they imitate the language of growth, quoting self-help lines, attending workshops, or mimicking gestures of affection. But the energy remains the same. It is performance without transformation. Carl Jung's insights into masks help us understand this. He observed that each person develops a persona, a role that allows us to function in society. Healthy individuals eventually recognize the mask as only a mask, peeling it back to encounter their unconscious and integrate their shadow. But some never make that leap. Instead, they live entirely in the mask, like an actor who never leaves the stage. In families, this can be devastating. A mother who never sheds the role of caretaker, a father clinging only to the role of provider, a sibling forever performing the rebel. When the mask becomes the whole identity, there is no room for authentic soul. Jung also warned about projection, the tendency to cast our disowned qualities onto others. In families with soulless members, projection becomes a constant undercurrent. The soulless member often mirrors back the unacknowledged emptiness of the entire system. A child may grow up drained by a soulless parent, only to realize later that the parent also reflected the family's refusal to confront deeper truths. In this way, the soulless family member is not only an individual absence, but also a living screen for the family's hidden shadows. The signs of soullessness in family life are subtle yet consistent. Manipulation without remorse is one. They exploit others emotionally, financially, or energetically, without guilt, without reflection. They may guilt trip you, gaslight you, twist your words, not always explosively, but in small, persistent patterns that wear you down. Another sign is lack of empathy. Share your pain and they respond with indifference, or worse, a dismissive remark that leaves you feeling smaller. They may feign sympathy, but it is surface level, more about appearances than true care. And perhaps the most painful sign of all is the absence of growth. Human beings are meant to change. Our personalities evolve, our perspectives deepen, our lives carry scars and wisdom. But soulless family members remain eerily the same year after year. The uncle still repeating the same grievances from 20 years ago. The sibling who cycles through the same destructive relationships. the parent clinging to shallow routines while life passes by. Their stories recycle like a broken record, and you find yourself wondering whether they are truly living at all. Living with such a presence leaves lasting marks on your own soul. You may grow up doubting your perceptions, asking, why do I feel so empty around them when everyone else says they're normal? You may overextend yourself, pouring love, energy, and attention into a void that never gives back. Over time, guilt may creep in. Guilt for noticing their emptiness as though acknowledging it makes you cruel. Yet in truth, your perception is not judgment, it is survival. Your soul recognizes the absence, and it cries out for protection. This lived experience is why so many traditions, from Gnosticism to Buddhism, warned us about soullessness. It is not an abstract theory. It is a reality felt in the bones of those who share a home with the void. The danger is not only in what these family members do, but in what they fail to do. To connect, to grow, to reflect life back. And the cost for those around them is a slow erosion of vitality, unless we learn to name the experience, see its patterns, and protect our inner light. If the presence of a soulless family member feels so unnatural, the obvious question arises, why would life allow it to happen in the first place? Why would someone be born into a household drained by emptiness? Why would a family attract such a presence under its roof? To approach this mystery, we must look both to spiritual traditions and psychological insight. Edgar Cayce, in his many trance readings, often spoke about karmic contracts. He taught that souls choose their families before birth, entering situations that offer opportunities for growth, balance, or unfinished lessons. In this light, having a soulless family member may not be an accident, but a karmic test. The void they embody forces the others in the family to make hard choices. Will you sacrifice yourself endlessly to fill their emptiness? Or will you learn to set boundaries, to guard your light, and to claim your own spiritual autonomy? Cayce warned that some incarnations are sleeping souls, individuals who walk through life without awakening. And for those around them, the lesson is not to awaken for them, but to awaken despite them. This perspective suggests that soulless family members, painful though they may be, serve as catalysts. Their presence compels growth in others. A child with an emotionally hollow parent may learn empathy more deeply by recognizing its absence. A sibling drained by a manipulative brother may learn discernment, resilience, and the art of boundaries. In Cayce's karmic view, their emptiness becomes the crucible in which others refine their souls. Carl Jung approached the problem differently, through the lens of intergenerational trauma. He observed that what one generation refuses to face in its unconscious does not vanish. Instead, it is passed down to the next. Families often carry shadows that no one dares to name: shame, addiction, violence, abandonment. When left unaddressed, these shadows crystallize into dysfunction, repeating across decades. A soulless family member may be the embodiment of that unintegrated shadow. Their emptiness reflects not only their own lack of growth, but also the unhealed wounds of the entire lineage. Jung once wrote, "The greatest burden on the child is the unlived life of the parent." And indeed, in families where parents or grandparents refuse to confront their pain, children may unconsciously carry the void forward. The soulless member becomes both victim and symptom of a larger family illness. And the rest of the family must decide, do we continue the cycle by pretending nothing is wrong, or do we break it by confronting the shadow at last? The late psychic researcher Ingo Swann offered yet another dimension. He spoke of what he called psychic residues. Swann, famous for his role in developing remote viewing for the US government, claimed that homes carry the imprints of emotions, intentions, and consciousness. A household dominated by a soulless member, he said, can feel energetically poisoned. The air becomes heavy with tension, fatigue, or unspoken hostility. Sensitive children often describe it as dread when entering certain rooms or a sense of suffocation that lifts only when they leave the house. Swann suggested that psychic awareness is not rare, it is natural, though often repressed. In families with soulless members, that awareness becomes a survival skill. The body tells the truth long before the mind dares to admit it. Even Albert Einstein, though a physicist, offered insights that resonate with this mystery. He described the sense of separateness as an optical delusion of consciousness. For Einstein, the self that imagines itself cut off from others lives in a kind of prison. Soulless family members embody this prison perfectly. They live as if disconnected from the whole, unable to feel empathy or the ripple effect of their actions. But Einstein also pointed to a solution: the expansion of consciousness. To overcome the delusion of separateness is to awaken to interconnectedness, to realize that what harms one harms all, and what uplifts one uplifts all. In this way, the presence of a soulless member in a family mirrors humanity's larger struggle. Just as the world battles disconnection and emptiness on a global scale, the family becomes the intimate stage where the same drama plays out. So why do families produce or attract soullessness? The answer is layered. From Cayce's view, it may be a karmic contract, a challenge chosen by the soul for growth. From Jung's psychology, it may be the inheritance of unintegrated shadows, passed silently from one generation to the next. From Swann's research, it may be the poisoned energetic residue of a household. And from Einstein's wisdom, it may be the reflection of humanity's universal illusion of separateness. The painful truth is that soullessness in families is rarely random. It arises from a complex tapestry of soul choices, psychological wounds, energetic environments, and cosmic illusions. Yet within that tapestry lies an opportunity, the chance to recognize, to awaken, and to choose differently. To see the void in your family is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of your path to light. Recognizing that a family member may embody soullessness is only the first step. The harder question is, what do you do about it? How do you live alongside someone whose presence drains your energy without falling into judgment or despair? Wisdom from psychology and spiritual traditions suggests that the key lies not in demonizing the other, but in cultivating discernment, strengthening your inner light, and learning the art of boundaries. Carl Jung's work offers a crucial starting point: the distinction between discernment and judgment. Jung warned that whenever we demonize another person, we risk projecting our own shadow onto them. Projection means disowning parts of ourselves and pinning them onto someone else. To call a family member soulless in blind anger is dangerous because we may simply be avoiding our own unacknowledged emptiness. But discernment is different. Discernment names an energetic reality without hatred. It allows us to see clearly that someone drains our vitality, lacks empathy, or remains static, while still holding compassion for their humanity. Judgment condemns. Discernment protects. With discernment as our compass, the next step is to practice what might be called spiritual hygiene. Just as we wash our hands to avoid infection, we must cleanse our energy to avoid carrying the residue of a soulless household. One simple practice is grounding. It can be as basic as stepping outside barefoot, feeling the earth beneath your feet, and breathing deeply until you sense your body's weight pulling you back into your own center. Grounding interrupts the draining effect of constant exposure to emptiness. Another practice is blessing at a distance. Instead of indulging in gossip or bitterness, you silently send the soulless member a prayer for awakening, without needing to interact. This keeps your heart clean. And refusing to participate in family gossip is just as vital because soullessness often feeds on cycles of negativity. By choosing honest proximity, staying present without lying, or honest space, stepping away without hostility, you maintain integrity. From here, we move into more active forms of energetic protection. Ingo Swann through his research into remote viewing, showed that consciousness is not bound by the body. It can project, shield, and direct energy with discipline. Many sensitives who grow up with soulless family members naturally develop shielding techniques. One common method is visualization. Imagine yourself surrounded by a sphere of light, golden, white, or violet, that extends about 3 feet beyond your body in every direction. This sphere allows love and truth to pass through, but filters out hostility, manipulation, or emptiness. Another method is prayer or mantra repetition. Whether you repeat the Lord's Prayer, a Buddhist chant, or a simple affirmation like, I remain in light, I remain in love, the rhythm anchors your consciousness in a higher frequency. Meditation also becomes not just a tool for peace, but a form of psychic hygiene. Even 10 minutes of stillness a day can reset your nervous system after draining family interactions. Swann insisted these practices were not fantasy, but real disciplines of the mind, as measurable in their effects as any physical regimen. Perhaps the hardest but most essential practice is the cultivation of boundaries. In families, the pressure to maintain harmony often leads us to tolerate what we would never accept from strangers. We excuse manipulation because she's my mother, or endure draining conversations because he's my brother. Yet true love is not the absence of boundaries. It is the courage to set them. Boundaries can take many forms. For some, it means limiting exposure, choosing shorter visits, declining unnecessary phone calls, or refusing to engage in old arguments. For others, it may mean detaching emotionally while still fulfilling basic obligations. And in extreme cases, when the void becomes destructive or abusive, the boundary may require physical distance, even if that means stepping away from the family system altogether. Jung's psychology reminds us that boundaries are not acts of rejection, but acts of individuation. To draw a line is to honor the truth that your soul has its own path. Spiritual traditions echo this as well. Discernment is not cruelty. It is the recognition that you cannot sacrifice your light into another's darkness without both being lost. Setting boundaries, then, is not only self-protection, it is an act of love. For when you refuse to play the old roles, you stop feeding the cycle of emptiness. Together, these strategies form a practical guide. Discernment allows you to see without hate. Spiritual hygiene keeps your energy clean. Energetic protection shields your light. And boundaries safeguard your soul's path. Living with a soulless family member will never be easy. But it can become the arena in which your own spirit grows sharper, clearer, and stronger. In the end, the void does not have to win. You can learn to stand within its presence without being consumed, carrying your light as a quiet defiance that no emptiness can extinguish. If recognizing soullessness and protecting yourself are acts of survival, then healing is the act of reclaiming life. To live in a house overshadowed by the void is to risk becoming hollow yourself, your laughter fading, your energy thinning, your hope dissolving. Yet, the miracle of the human spirit is its ability to transform its environment from within. Healing a home marked by soullessness does not begin by fixing the other. It begins by awakening your own consciousness so that the void does not consume you. The first step is the transformation of your inner posture. As long as you enter every interaction with dread or resistance, the soulless presence wins. Their emptiness becomes the axis around which your emotions spin. To break free, you must anchor your awareness in something deeper, the unshakable knowledge that your light is not theirs to extinguish. Ancient traditions describe this as keeping the lamp lit. Whether through daily meditation, prayer, journaling, or simply pausing to breathe before entering a room, the practice is the same. Choose to radiate from your own center rather than absorb the atmosphere of the house. Transformation begins within, whether or not the soulless member ever awakens. But transformation also requires the difficult work of forgiveness without enabling. Forgiveness does not mean excusing manipulation or tolerating harm. It means refusing to carry the bitterness that corrodes your own soul. Many who grow up with soulless parents find themselves haunted by anger long after they leave home. To forgive is to lay down the weight of that anger, not for their sake, but for your own. Yet forgiveness must be paired with discernment. To forgive is not to invite the void back into power. You can bless them from a distance, release the resentment, and still say, I will not allow this behavior in my life. This delicate balance, compassion without enabling, is one of the highest forms of spiritual maturity. Alongside forgiveness comes the act of reclaiming soul energy. Soullessness thrives on cycles of depletion. You give and give, but nothing returns. To heal, you must replenish yourself with practices, relationships, and activities that restore life. Creativity is one of the most powerful tools. Whether through painting, music, writing, or gardening, creative expression reconnects you with the spark that makes you uniquely alive. Community is medicine too. A chosen family of friends, mentors, or spiritual companions can mirror back the vitality that the soulless member cannot. Even small acts of service, volunteering, helping a neighbor, joining a group, rebuild the sense of connection that the void attempts to sever. And of course, love remains the ultimate reclamation. Love directed outward but also inward, affirming your worth, nurturing your health, and celebrating your existence as sacred. Still, healing requires a sobering truth. Not every family bond is meant to be salvaged. Our culture insists that blood is thicker than water, that loyalty to family is absolute. Yet history, psychology, and spirituality suggest otherwise. Some family ties are karmic tests meant only to be endured until we learn to let go. Sometimes the greatest act of healing is to step away. Distance is not betrayal, it can be liberation. As Jung taught, individuation often requires breaking from the family's collective shadow. And as Cayce implied, your soul's contract may not be to fix the other, but to find the courage to walk your own path. To stay entangled in a house where the void dominates may mean betraying your own destiny. To step away, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, may finally allow light to flourish. Healing then is not about changing the soulless family member. It is about reclaiming your house as a sanctuary for your own spirit. Sometimes that means literally transforming the atmosphere, filling the rooms with music, light, prayer, or laughter that refuses to be silenced. Sometimes it means quietly maintaining inner practices of grounding and blessing. And sometimes it means leaving altogether, carrying your light into a new home where your soul can breathe freely. In every case, the principle is the same. You heal by refusing to let emptiness define you. You forgive so that bitterness does not take root. You create, connect, and love to restore the spark that was drained. You set boundaries, even to the point of distance, so that your soul remains sovereign. And in doing so, you discover that the void never truly wins. For while emptiness may sit at your table, it cannot consume the one who chooses to live with a lamp lit, a heart open, and a spirit unbroken. We began this journey with an unsettling recognition. Sometimes the emptiness we fear in the world is not out there in strangers, but sitting across from us at the family table. To live with a soulless family member is to feel a quiet drain that words can hardly capture, a hollow in the eyes, a repetition of lifeless behaviors, an atmosphere that saps vitality from the home itself. It is one of the hardest spiritual challenges because family is where we expect safety, warmth, and love. And when instead we find emptiness, the betrayal cuts deep. Yet through this exploration, a few truths have come into focus. First, soullessness is not simply cruelty or dysfunction. It is the absence of the spark of growth. Psychology can explain part of the picture through narcissism, sociopathy, or trauma. But traditions from the Gnostics to Buddhism, from Edgar Cayce to Carl Jung, remind us that the deeper issue is spiritual. Some remain asleep to the soul, living in loops without change. Others embody the shadows of generations, never breaking free. Their presence does not negate our humanity, it calls us to deepen it. Second, we have seen why these situations arise. Cayce spoke of karmic contracts, souls choosing difficult families not as punishment but as training grounds. Jung revealed how unhealed shadows move silently through bloodlines until someone dares to confront them. Ingo Swann showed that homes themselves can carry energy, and some are poisoned by the residue of emptiness. Einstein reminded us that separateness is an illusion, and family systems mirror humanity's struggle to awaken to interconnectedness. To encounter a soulless member, then, is not random. It is part of the larger story of growth, shadow, and awakening. Third, we explored the strategies that allow us not only to survive, but to remain whole. Discernment, not judgment, protects us from projecting our own shadows. Spiritual hygiene, grounding, blessing at a distance, refusing gossip, keeps our inner atmosphere clean. Energetic disciplines like visualization, prayer, and meditation form shields that guard our light. And boundaries, even to the point of distance, allow us to honor our own path without being swallowed by the void. And finally, we saw that healing does not mean fixing the soulless. Healing means reclaiming yourself. It means forgiveness without enabling, so bitterness does not consume you. It means reclaiming soul energy through creativity, community, and love. It means acknowledging, with courage, that not every family tie is meant to be salvaged. Sometimes the highest act of love is to step away. Above all, healing means refusing to let emptiness define your life. So what can you carry forward? Perhaps this: the void may live in your house, but it does not have to live in your soul. You can name it. You can protect yourself from it. And you can choose to radiate light in spite of it. Soullessness may drain, but it cannot extinguish the flame of a soul committed to awakening. As we close, I want to offer this gentle call. Do not demonize, but protect your light. Keep your lamp lit, even if others remain in darkness. Learn from the presence of emptiness, but do not let it dictate your destiny. And remember, you are not alone. Many walk this same path. Many wrestle with the same quiet void in their families. If this message resonates with you, I invite you to pause and reflect. Have you felt the presence of soullessness in your own family? How have you learned to protect your energy? Or where are you still searching for strength? Share your experiences in the comments below, not only to speak your truth, but to remind others that they too are not alone. And if this journey has offered you insight, I encourage you to support this channel, Awakened Wisdom. Subscribe, share, and help spread these conversations so that others may find guidance in the dark. Together, we can build a community of light, one where we honor the soul, protect our spirit. Remember that even when the void lives in the house, we can still choose to live in love.